ain't going to work otherwise. Oh, yeah, that's much better. That's better. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Reverend Laura Sutherland. Yeah, there's a reverend in front of my name. How about that? So, I'm so happy that you're here today, and it's wonderful to make such a joyful noise in this sacred space, isn't it? Yeah, it really is. So, who am I? I'm a person who started on my spiritual path rather early. Most people find it like around their middle age. I started when I was about 17. I was in a very difficult part in my life, a lot of turmoil, inner turmoil. And I found the book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And it opened something in me that I didn't even know needed to be opened. It was wonderful. And from there, I became obsessed with Eastern tradition. And so I kind of fell into that speak for a while. Then, in around the early 90s, I guess, I began a more formal training. Actually, it was the 80s. In the 90s, I decided I wanted to make it really formal, and I had the opportunity to join a seminary. So I attended a seminary called Santa Sofia Seminary, which was part of an intentional spiritual community in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Fantastic place. It was actually a mystery school, an esoteric Christian place to learn about the ancient wisdom and who we truly are. It was fantastic.
What's the name of that?
Sancta Sophia Seminary, and it was located in what was known then as Sparrowhawk Village in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. So, as divine timing just works so beautifully, it so happens that the founder of this seminary and of the spiritual village, my mentor, my first real, strong, memorable life teacher, her name was Carol Parrish. And it so happens that Carol Parrish is the sister of Carla Neff. Carla Neff is the mother of our own Deborah Gordan. Yeah, synchronicity. Yeah, when we found that out about each other, it was like, my sister. It was very cool. So that was a wonderful experience. However, I did not go to completion. I did not become ordained at that time. I met my husband, fell in love, and got very distracted. And I wasn't going to be driving back to Oklahoma all the time. So I dropped out. And the point I dropped out at was called a lay minister. So I was fine with that. There was a little twinge of like, oh, maybe I should have gone all the way. But no, I've got more important things to do. Right? Well, it didn't take long for Spirit to say, I got married in 1995, and over the next several years, occasionally I'd get from Spirit. I was like, time would pass and, go away. I don't have time for this. Finally, it was either the end of the winter of 1999 or early 2000. It was like, well, this time I didn't 100% brush it off. I thought, well, maybe I should pay attention. But I don't know. Well, shortly thereafter, again, when Spirit wants you to do something, it's like. So shortly thereafter, once I said, well, maybe, but I don't know, Spirit said, aha, I'm going to get her. I know I'm going to get her, and I know just the way to do it. So I was driving down a street that I've driven down dozens of times in my neighborhood, dozens of times. And I never noticed that there was a particular spot where there's a big billboard that faces Garland Road, kind of at Northwest Highway and Garland Road. But I noticed it this day. It was there when I saw it, and it was never there again. This billboard was so simple and it totally changed my inner life. The background of the billboard, just solid black. There was one image on the billboard and 4 words. The image on the billboard was a white clerical collar, and the words were, "White collar workers needed." Yeah, I get it again too every time I say this story. So I was driving along, I looked up and saw this sign and went, uh-oh. Okay. So I said, okay. I didn't know how it was going to proceed because I didn't have the time, money, or really the inclination to pursue it the way I had originally started. But Spirit always finds a way. So one of the ministers from Sparrowhawk Village in Sancta Sophia and I were in a conversation at one point, and he said, you know, I've run across this way to become ordained where you don't have to go through seminary. I said, oh, really? And so he told me all about it. I investigated, and I decided this is the perfect route for me. So I pursued that, and I became ordained in 2000 through the Universal Brotherhood Movement, which is an international ordaining body that gives you all the rights and privileges of any minister anywhere on the planet. So I decided my ministry would be sacred service. But I don't mean sacred service in the normal way. I really mean sacred services. I decided that my ministry was going to be comprised of officiating any kind of sacred ceremony that people needed. So I became a minister for hire, doing weddings and celebrations of life and house blessings and pet memorials and anything that anyone needed that required a sacred service. And I realized that what I'm good at and what my heart was being called to do was to participate in people's transitions, whether it's transition from singlehood to married life or whatever it may be, any kind of major transition. I wanted to be a part of helping that individual usher it in. So that is what I do. That's my side hustle, I guess you could say. And I love it. I love doing that. And as a matter of fact, I just ordained, I'm also a minister director, so I have ordaining power. Love being powerful. And those of you from Unity of Dallas may know Louise Ross. I just ordained her a week ago today. So, yeah, very cool. So, let's move into our discussion today, shall we? I've got my little cheat sheet here because I don't want to forget anything. So, you know, they say that you teach that which you are most trying to learn yourself. Well, that's certainly true for me in my spiritual path, and I think all of us to a degree. We like to learn, and we're eager to learn, and learning has been such an important part of our process. Well, we've been doing it a long time now, haven't we? I mean, we look around the room, we see people in this room are typically over 40, 50, 60. And I'm here to say, enough. We don't need to learn anymore. The time of learning is past. We're done with learning. We've learned it. Now it's time to live it. Just like the 5th principle of unity says, and if you know the other 4, you'll understand that the 5th principle is saying, it is not enough to know these things, referring to the other 4. We must live them out day after day. They must become an integral part of our lives and who we are. So this time in our history as humans on the planet is an urgent one. These are urgent times we're living in. We're being called to wakefulness like never before, to enlightenment. Enlightenment and wakefulness are synonymous. When we're enlightened, we're awake. But who's calling us? So this is a time not for learning, but for remembering, for integrating, for rediscovering, and for expanding our consciousness into who we truly are. Who's calling us? We are. The Christ within is calling us forward because we have to realize in every cell of our being that we are spirit incarnate. We have to wake up now. And living the truth of who we are, being the Christ in the world, while still in form, is what Jesus did. And he told us that we could do it too, and I believe him. So our talk today is more of a reminder of our human journey back to wholeness, back to oneness, back to who we really, really, really are. It's a choice. We can choose it, or we can choose to just go upon our merry way and the planet be darned and humanity be darned. The ego is doing a fine job of taking over. But we get to choose, and it's a time of choice right now. It's our destiny to choose wisely. So how do we incorporate the fact that we are both human and divine together? It's a tough one. We say it all the time, but how do we live that? You know, when I was in seminary, we were taught that this is a transitional period of history, moving from darkness to light, from ignorance to bliss. We were actually, a graphic was shown to us. So when I say shown, I mean literally shown. This really cool graphic with a giant clock face. And there's only 2 numbers on it, 12 and 6. And one hand. The hand at 12 is God consciousness. That's where we began, before form. That's 12 o'clock. And then the Big Bang and form, and the hand starts to move. And it's moving around the clock face. And it gets to 6. And that's the nadir. That's the lowest point in our evolution. It's referred to in history as the Kali Yuga, the Dark Ages. Well, fortunately, we're not there anymore. That was quite a while back. But that clock hand moves pretty slow. So now we were taught that the clock hand is at about 6:37. So we've moved past the lowest point in our evolution. And we're making our slow way back to 12 o'clock. And as we move back towards this, it's that which is not of our essential self, our true nature, the 12 o'clock us, is being called out for clearing, cleansing, purifying, and balancing. The ego is having its way with us, yes? We look around the world today and we see the mess that's been made. So what do? How do we get back to our wholeness, our oneness, our living the truth of who we are? Well, we talked about it in our inspirational message, actually. It's that journey that we make. Again, it's so easy to talk about it, but it's a little harder to live it out day after day. When we think of our humanity and our divinity, we think of it, well, we try to think of it as a conjoined concept, but it's really hard to totally get that because we live in a dualistic realm. So it's very hard to not think dualistically. So we have our humanity and we have our divinity. And we say we are both human and divine. But how do those really come together? How do we make that happen day in and day out, every day? Well, we have to stop thinking of it like this. Because 3 days ago, you were in rush hour traffic and somebody was very rude and you were definitely in your humanity. Or somebody at work or even your own grandchildren really ticked you off and you were in your humanity in that moment. And then maybe yesterday you had this moment of pure joy and pure wholeness. And you realized, yeah, this is it. I'm feeling my divinity now. But there's still often like that. You're either human or you're divine at any given moment. But that's not the truth of us. We're not this or this trying to come together. We are this. We are this all the time. All the time. We just can't feel it all the time. Well, I haven't discovered them because I'm certainly not the first one, but I have found that for me, there are two tools on my tool belt, in my toolbox, that are very helpful for really getting me here as opposed to here or here. The first one is simply presence. Now, a lot of people say mindfulness, and we use mindfulness as a term a lot. It's a very popular term right now. And because it is so popular and being used by everyone, it seems, there can be subtle differences in how we interpret that word. So I prefer the word presence. I think it's more accurate for what we're talking about here. So when we are present, we are not in yesterday, and we're not in tomorrow. We're 100% right here, right now. When we're right here, right now, we are whole. We are this. We are not this or this. We can authentically achieve our oneness. When we're in the mind, we're in the realm of the ego. When we're in the mind, we're in either the past or the future. What happened 20 years ago, what happened 10 minutes ago, all those experiences and expressions of the past are brought forward. And we're not really here now. We're the summation of everything we were or have been. Or we're projecting into what will happen next and who will be tomorrow or the next day, and maybe enlightenment will happen for me next month. But we're not here right now. So how do we become fully present? How do we forego the business and the busyness of the mind, constantly pulling us away from the present moment? Oh, there was a bumper sticker I saw a long time ago. Has been a long time since I've seen it. I wish I'd found it then and bought it because it's one of the best I've ever seen, and I love it so much. And this is exactly what we do. The bumper sticker said, "Don't believe everything you think." It's so simple, but so profound, because we do that. You know, we think, well, if I'm thinking it, I'm invested in this thought, it must be true. Well, that's the ego insisting on its way again. And we have to transcend the will of the ego. So what do we do? How do we become here and now and present in this moment? Well, it's really hard to just say, okay, I'm going to meditate now. I'm not going to think, I'm not going to think, I'm not going to think. How does that work? Not too good, because that which we resist persists. And those thoughts are ready and roaring to go every second of the day. So that doesn't really work. So again, like we experienced in our inspirational reading, we have to gently allow the ego to calm down. And we do that through the simple act of observation. We go into a space called beginner's mind. I'm trying to remember if that's an actual Buddhist thought or not. I can't recall, but beginner's mind is such a beautiful thing. Is it? Okay. So I was at the Arboretum. Well, I go all the time. I live over there. This particular day, and it was Dallas Blooms, and I was just really present, having a great time with the flowers, and I noticed this little girl. Now, I took this picture after I first saw her. When I first saw her, she was bending over the flowers like this, and her mom was like, "No, don't touch them," because you're not supposed to at the Arboretum, right? So she stood up. I said, "Oh, I got to get this," and I took a picture of her. But this little girl is demonstrating beginner's mind. She's not worried about what's going to be for lunch when they go home. She's not worried about not being able to find her left sandal before she got dressed to come to the Arboretum. She is fully present, right then, right there, loving on those flowers. She's observing the flowers, but she's with them. She's not thinking about them. You can just see. She's there. She's fully present. Q, if you'd put up the next slide. When you look at the intricacy of this flower, the mathematical precision, the wonder, the awe that it brings out in us. Is your mind active right now? Or are you just like, whoa? You're just present. Thank you, Q. So when we're in the moment, we're fully awake. We recognize our eternal nature. And this creates a doorway into heaven, into God mind, into truth, into source. So I'd like to give you an example of how easy it can be to become fully present in the moment. We can certainly have moments of mystical presence where truly everything else goes away and we're just feeling our oneness with Source. That's a beautiful thing. But it's not practical if we're going to live out in the world, right? I mean, when space-time drops away and you're one, it's hard to go to the grocery store, But we can get into that observer's mind, which helps us to stay focused on the present and not get sucked in to all the thoughts. So 2 times in my life, that experience has been very meaningful for me. The first time, I wasn't really officially on the path, as it were, so I didn't know what was going on. It kind of freaked me out. It was only later, much later, that I realized what had happened. So I had just been ghosted by whom I thought was the love of my life. I was madly, passionately, obsessively in love. And I was led to believe that it was mutual. And then suddenly, ghosted. So I was devastated, needless to say. So I was alone in my apartment this particular weekend that it happened, and I had a complete and utter meltdown. I mean, I was wailing, screaming, crying, throwing the proverbial fit. And it went on for quite a while. Poor neighbors. Oh, my poor neighbors. What they must have thought was going on. Anyway, in the midst of one particularly passionate outburst of tears, I'm crying and carrying on. And suddenly I just stopped. I had retracted and was watching myself have this experience. And it freaked me out because it was very obvious. I mean, it wasn't a little subtle thing. It was like sudden. Suddenly I was watching myself, and I actually kind of looked around. What's happening to me? And then I was completely calm, completely still. I didn't know why. I didn't know what was happening. I just knew it was happening. I just thought, wow, that's weird. And I just got up and went about my day. It was just done. I couldn't explain it. Now I can explain it, but I didn't know then. Another time this happened to me was far less dramatic. And I find that when these experiences happen where we can pull back and observe, again, like we had in our inspirational message, they can happen when things are traumatic and we're kind of jolted into that moment, or they can happen in the most mundane of circumstances. So the second time this happened to me was a very mundane circumstance. And I use this just to illustrate the point that it can happen during mundane things. So I was going to make something in the kitchen. So I walked into the kitchen, and I thought, oh, it's way up there. I got to get that pan. So I opened the kitchen, the cupboard, and I reached up. And again, in that moment of reaching for the object I needed, I again had pulled back and was watching it. And I actually watched my hand reach for the item and put it down. I thought, whoa, who is this? I mean, I really had to ask, who is this? Because I had disassociated just enough that I was watching someone, myself. But I was fully present in that moment. And I continued to make this recipe, and I was so focused on the recipe, I had nothing else was going on around me. I was just there doing my thing. So it can happen, and we can invite it. And once we know it's possible, we can actually invite these experiences in. We can get a bird's eye view of ourselves and become fully present in the moment. But there's one hurdle that we need to overcome. It's really hard to be present when everything in the past is always yammering at you. Pay attention to me, pay attention to me. Don't let that trigger you. So in order to be really present right here, right now, I have found that we have to do a lot of releasing of our pain body. So many of us are walking around with this heavy pain body. Almost everyone has experienced some form of trauma or early dramatic event in their lives that was painful. And when we're very young and we have these experiences, we don't know how to process them. So the only thing we know to do is repress them. Now, when we're very young, sometimes we can cry about it. But then often, where does that get us? Shh, don't cry. So we stuff it. We've been doing it all our lives. So no wonder it's so hard to be present now when you've got all this stuff that wants to be heard and seen and felt and expressed. We have to excavate. We have to do the hard work and get in there and find out and feel those earliest experiences of pain so they can be released. And we can be fully present to what's happening right now. We've all known people that they're friends, kinda, and we say kinda because they're kind of hard to be around. They're triggered so easily. You know, you're afraid. You have to tiptoe. You're on eggshells. You're not sure if you're going to say something. They're going to get triggered, and then before you know it, they're all up in your grill. Those are people who are carrying around a really heavy pain body, and they don't know how to be present with who they are and who you are in that moment. They're triggered by so much in the past. So we need to do that work. That really helps us be present. There's a book that I'd like to invite you to check out. I think it's wonderful. Journey into Now by Leonard Jacobson. If you've read it, you know. If you haven't read it, do it. He talks about how we need to release these things from the past. He talks about how we can come full present into this moment. It's a beautiful book. There's another book called Awake, It's Your Turn. And the author is Angelo DiLullo. That, too, is a wonderful book. There's so much out there that can help us. And again, it's not really learning. It's rediscovering and remembering what we really already know. But we need a little help bringing forward sometimes. Adyashanti, one of my favorite teachers. He has a lot of good work on YouTube that will really help you become present and remember who you are, the truth of you, that you're this. You're spirit and you're human, both together, all the time. So that was tool number one. There's another way that we light workers who have committed to the process of our own becoming can regain our sense of oneness, can come back to understanding and expressing both our divinity and our humanity together. And that second tool, again mentioned, is that organ that's right here in the middle of our chest. The one that science has said, oh yes, you've got this necessary pump that circulates oxygenated blood through your body so you may live. We know it's more than that. We have what books and film and TV and others have taught us about how the heart is this wanting, willing, waiting thing for love to hit us. How it makes us fall in love and feel like we've never felt before, and then can turn around and leave us devastated when we lose that. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. Even though the saying, the heart wants what the heart wants, is a popular one, that sometimes leads us to think, well, is what the heart wants a foolhardy thing? Is what the heart wants something the mind doesn't want? Well, research, actual scientific research, has discovered that the heart is not a pump. It is, but that's not certainly its main purpose. It has a far more important task for us. The heart actually functions as a second brain. Now, in my opinion, it's the first brain. Because I don't always trust what's going on up here, but I really trust what this can do, right? So how many people in the room are familiar with heart math? Good, many. So for those of you who aren't, heart math was developed in 1991 by Doc Childress. And he taught that the heart's intelligence is actually more powerful and more accurate than the brain's. I believe it. Did you know that the heart's energy field extends 3 feet from our body? 3 feet, everybody's. All y'all's heart fields are merging right now. In our brain's energy field, inches. I know who I'm going to trust. So, like when you walk into a strange room or a room full of people that may be strangers, and you walk into a room and you know what's going on in that room. You're like, oh, I don't think I want to be here. Or, yeah, this has got great energy. Well, that's your intuition or your gut on the one hand. But really, what it is that energy field of the heart, experiencing what's true in that space. And everybody else's heart energy is experiencing what's in that space. So it's very accurate. Trust that judgment when you walk into a space and you get a feeling, that's real and that's true. So, when we are in our heart space and when we are present, we get to do something called coherence. We experience coherence frequently without knowing what it is. We call it flow. So like an artist at work, or a musician, a composer, anyone who's passionately devoted to something they love. Anytime you're undergoing an activity where you're so into it that you lose all track of time and space, you're in the flow, right? Well, you're actually in coherence. It's a beautiful thing. I want to read something to you. This is kind of a paraphrase of mine, but it's from Heart Math. I really like this. The act of coherence has a huge effect, not only on every level of your being, but on everyone around you, and even the whole planet. Effectively accessing the heart's intelligence and expressing coherence can create a new life experience for who we become collectively as a species. That's big. So connecting with our heart not only allows us to have that experience, excuse me, in our connection with each other, to experience that oneness and wholeness, but it also acts like a portal into the cosmic heart of God. It's amazing. When we're present and when we're coherent, we are love. And everything that we are present with reflects that love back to us. The paradox is that the mind of God that we're trying to merge with cannot be reached through our mind. Again, past, future, no present. So to tap into the mind of God, we must find presence, and we must do it through the portal of the heart. Now, heart math tells us there are 3 essential feelings that will open that portal. They are gratitude, appreciation, and love. No surprise. When we're filled with appreciation and gratitude and love engulfs us, there's no thought happening. So we're not in the mind. We're not present with the mind. We're present with the heart. We know in those moments that we're not separate beings. We're one, forever at home with our Creator and the creation. We experience that coexistence of our divinity and our humanity. Those divine energies expresses our true nature. We are God-man. One word, God-man. God expressing as man. And then we can truly say with authority, I am that I am. We know and experience that we are life itself. So I'd like us to go into a meditation. It'll be a twofold thing. We're going to do a meditation, and then we're going to go right into a heart math exercise and get coherent. So if you'll join me now. Let's take a nice, slow, deep breath. We're right here, right now, both human and divine. A man was truly seeking God. I love you, he cried, but I do not know how to find you. Be still, replied God. Be silent. Be present. Look and you will see me. Listen and you will hear me, for I am everywhere. At first it may be difficult, for I am invisible. I am hidden, and I speak very softly. You must become silent if you are to hear me. You must become still if you are to see me. You must become vulnerable and sensitive if you are to feel me. You must become innocent if you are to know me. Surrender all your beliefs about me, for I am beyond belief. Do not try to imagine me, for I am real and cannot be imagined. Do not create me in your image, for I am beyond all imagery. Be sincere, and you will find me. For I am love, and I am with you always. You cannot comprehend what I am like, so don't try. Just be present. Be still. And behold, I am here. Now Now I invite you to breathe into your heart. Slow, deep breaths into that center that is in the middle of your chest. And if you'd like to place your left hand upon your chest, right over your heart, feel free to do so. Breathing in deeply, in and out of your heart. Feel what it's like to open. Feel the warmth beginning to emanate from your chest. Now bring before your mind's eye someone or something, even an animal, a pet, that you feel deep appreciation for. Someone you feel such gratitude for. Someone that you cherish and love with all your heart. A smile may form on your lips. A tear may form in your eye. That's okay. Just be present with the love, the gratitude. Oh, the gratitude. And the deep appreciation for this beloved. Experience the oneness. Let it fill your entire being. This is coherence. This is being fully present, right here, right now. Human and divine conjoined. And as you're ready, you may come back into this time and space, gently and slowly. Namaste.